Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I was just about to say, someone told me that I'm not controlling this mic and someone else is. So whoever that someone else is, thank you for having this mic live. And thanks to all of you for being here this morning for the Salt Lake Chamber's Education and Workforce Forum. This forum today is about connecting business and higher education, and we are thrilled to see so many of you here to engage in this important conversation with 5 of our incredible university and college presidents. I'm Derek Miller, President and CEO of the Salt Lake Chamber and Downtown Alliance. At this time, I'd like to take just a moment to thank our event sponsors and those individuals and partners who've made this forum possible. They're listed in the back of your program. Our education and workforce sponsors include the Utah System of Higher Education and Energy Solutions. Our breakfast sponsors are Westminster College and Rio Tinto, and our event partner is the Women's Leadership Institute. Our marketing partners include the Sandy Area Chamber of Commerce, the Utah Women and Leadership Project at Utah Valley University, and My 529 Utah Educational Savings Plan. Would you please join me in thanking our sponsors today? I also want to take a moment to recognize our Lieutenant Governor, Spencer Cox, who is joined today by his wife, Abby. They're with us in the audience, as well as the Salt Lake Chamber Board Chair, Steve Starks. We also are grateful to have the Chamber's Education and Workforce Chair, Sean Slatter, here, and other members of the State Board of Regents, University and College Board of Trustees. We recognize that these panelists only include 5 of the many college and university presidents throughout our state, all of whom work hard to educate and train the workforce of today and tomorrow. If you're here from a college or a university that's not represented on our stage today, will you please stand and be recognized? And let's give them a round of applause as well. Thank you. All of you are here today because you recognize that an educated workforce is a top concern for businesses across the state. That is why it is imperative that we work in a collaborative fashion with education on every level to address workforce needs. In the Chamber's recent CEO Outlook survey, which is a quarterly statewide economic survey of business executives, we consistently find that businesses share a common concern about the impact of a labor shortage on their companies. It is the single greatest challenge and the single greatest threat to our continued economic and business growth. I don't have to tell this group about our needs for a skilled and educated workforce. You understand the importance of this issue, or you wouldn't be here this morning. But we now need to move past talking about the problem and work to take action, to create partnerships, and to find solutions. That's why I'm issuing this call to action today to the business community. Business leaders must come to the table and be part of the solution. We hope that you will walk away from today's forum and the conversation today with concrete ideas on how you, in your individual businesses, can make that happen. Ways that you can engage to build a stronger talent pipeline that makes sense for your company. This could be by simply offering your industry perspective to a college advisory board, creating internship opportunities, or connecting with your local tech, college, or university. I'm sure that you will get numerous other good ideas from the presidents during the conversation today. However you choose to do it, I challenge you to leave here today and then make a connection. Make a connection and find a way to engage, to follow through, and to be part of the solution in improving our workforce. Now, I'd like to turn the mic over to a great partner of ours at the Chamber, Pat Jones, CEO of the Women's Leadership Institute and current member of the State Board of Regents, who will introduce our panel today. Pat?
Thank you, Derek. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you, each one of you, for being here today with us. We're so excited for this day. We've been looking forward to it for a long, long time. Exactly 4 years ago, there was an article in the New York Post that said there are 5 places that women should not travel: Turkey, Indonesia, El Salvador, Saudi Arabia, and Utah. Isn't it amazing that we would be pointed out as a place that's not a great place for women? Unfortunately, we do have low numbers of women in senior level. We have very few representatives in the legislature and other political offices. We have very few women in senior level and in other areas in our state. We also have a significant wage gap in our state. But because of that article and for other reasons, the Women's Leadership Institute was formed by some visionary leaders in our state. We are unique in that we provide great trainings for women. We are led by business. We have a great relationship with our business community. And we believe that men are allies and advocates of women. And we created and we help companies implement the Elevate Her Challenge, a challenge that is helping so many companies and organizations elevate women to senior level. We have seen the fruits of that, and we have great representatives here who have been part of that Elevate Her Challenge. Today, we are going to witness 5 reasons why women should come to Utah, travel to Utah, and go to school in Utah. I think we owe a great hand to the people that are here and who we'll be honoring. We are so fortunate in Utah to have wonderful institutions of higher education throughout the state of Utah, and we have great presidents. It's just that 5 of them happen to be women. So 50% of our institutions are led by women now. And it was amazing to me to learn that 70% of our college students in the state of Utah will now be led by female presidents. I think that deserves a hand too. I encourage you to read the bios of each one of these remarkable leaders. They're not just women, they're leaders. And they were each picked because of their capabilities and the exemplary lives that they have led. The collective diversity among the great women will add immeasurable value to the students in our state and to students' experiences. They will also provide an essential role model for all women, not just young women, but each of us that are out there looking for role models. But I have to say that I have witnessed similarities, not just their uniqueness, because each one comes from different backgrounds, has skills that are unique to each one. But I love the fact that I have personally witnessed, as a member of the Board of Regents, how they work together in a collaborative nature and how they care about their students. And in essence, each one is in their own right a wonderful leader and teacher. They are collaborative, but they're also innovative, and they have this energy that is collectively managing and channeling change in our state. So I'm so honored to be here with them today and to work with the Chamber in providing this opportunity for each of us to learn more about them and to understand what you will be doing to make our state an even better state. And we're so grateful to each one of you. I would now like to turn the mic over to Natalie Gochnour. I'm sure each one of you knows Natalie quite well, but of course, Natalie is the Associate Dean of the David Eccles School of Business and Director of the Kemsey Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. Natalie?
Well, good morning to all of you. I'm going to invite our presidents to come up and join me on the stage. We're going to learn a lot about these presidents in this time that we spend together. And I'm a big fan of the national parks. And you might wonder what the national parks have to do with these ladies, but we talk about the Mighty Five, and I just want to present to you Utah's Mighty Five. And rather than give specific biographical information for each of the presidents, we're going to cover that in our commentary here. And I'm aware and thinking about two major trends happening in our state and to a certain extent nationally. And the first is the importance of education to the economy, to the Utah economy, to the national economy. And I don't think there's ever been a time when education's been more important. The second sort of cross-cutting theme is the notion that female leadership is very needed at this time. So we're going to juxtapose the economy and the importance of education and the value of female leadership during this time we spend together. How does that sound? Okay, and to start it off, I want to ask each of you to respond to a question that just gives us the mini version, maybe 2 minutes, of your path to president. And President Huftalin, I'm going to start with you. and I'm hoping that what you'll share is, not the academic resume version. Okay, like this is where I got my, degree, and these are all the positions I've held. I'm going to call it the anti-resume version, where just pretend like you have, a daughter, a granddaughter, a great niece by you, and you're just explaining to them what happened that put you in this position.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you. I can't see any of you with these lights, but I'm sure you're there, and I love the laughter, so good morning. The anti-resume. Well, I would say that perhaps the best thing I would share to a niece or a daughter, that I had a daughter. I have 2 sons, but is that I took opportunities when they were presented to me that were very, in some ways scary, that I didn't know quite how I was going to do it, but I said yes, and then I figured it out, and I asked for a lot of help. And so you take opportunities, and if you don't know how to do it, you find people that do, or you learn. And then I persevered. I just showed up, and I did my best job where I was. And then when another opportunity came around, I looked at it and said, okay, now I'm going to do that. So I think part of it was just taking risks and kind of being a little brave at times, and then learning along the way. Never stop learning. Just continue to kind of figure out where your blind spots, what you need to do better. I just think you have to be in the game. You have to say yes to things that you don't necessarily know how to do.
Sounds like a great recipe. President Cockett, we're going to come to you with Utah State University, your little mini resume version of your path to president.
So I think some real guiding background that I have and where I sit today actually goes way back. I grew up on a beef cattle ranch in Montana, and so a strong agricultural background. And that really made me realize that I needed to problem solving, strong work ethic, and something we would always say, you have to work till the job's done. And I never doubted what I could do while working beside my uncle and my brothers. I knew that I couldn't maybe lift as much as they could, but I definitely could drive the tractor straighter. So I think it was the understanding that when I need help, I can ask for it, and have the confidence to know that I could do what needed to be done. The second thing that influenced me quite a bit was I went to a parochial school from 1st through 12th grade. And at that time, most of my teachers were nuns. When I was in 1st grade, I actually thought I wanted to be a nun. But by 2nd grade, I realized that probably wasn't my direction. But the thing about the nuns is a group of women who had obtained a higher education with the passion of teaching. But one of the things that they instilled in me is that you need to do all you can to live up to your ability. So at no point was I ever allowed to slack in the classroom or in sports, etc., because they saw something in me that had a lot of ability. So I thank them for getting me out there and living up to that potential.
Wonderful. President Dobkin, we're going to come to you with Westminster, and maybe you can describe to the crowd your path to president in a very kind of human way.
In a human way, well.
Yeah, not
that's the way it's all
the
in a human
academic
way.
credentials way.
Well, I share some of the same reflections about being willing to take opportunities, having people suggest things to you, and then figuring out how to do it and how to be your best. But when I was thinking about the question, I actually was taken back to 4th grade, 10 years old. I was out on the playground, and there was a little boy who just wouldn't stop pinching me. And so I went to the teacher, and I said, Mrs. Denman, I remember her name, Mrs. Denman, there's this problem. She brought the boy into the classroom and said, here he is, now you can pinch him. And even at 10 years old, I thought, I don't want to pinch him, I just want him to stop. But it also, I think, is just an example of how when you're someone who loves education and understands its power, you also want to make sure that it's done well. And you want to do it in a way that lifts everyone. So those early experiences, I think, gave me both a respect for education and a love for it, and also a real drive to want to make things better, to want to address things that I didn't think were right or that somehow incited my passion. And there were a lot of other career things to do along the way, a lot of different jobs to try out and career paths to explore, but I kept coming back to education because I really saw it as a way that we could have a positive change and increasingly become those kind of lifelong learners that will help us to manage the challenge that face us and the opportunities that we're presented with.
That's great. President Watkins with the University of Utah, we're going to go to you next on your path to president.
So, who in the world would think that I would ever be so fortunate as to be a president of a university? I think I've probably been the luckiest person in the world. I had kind of an unconventional undergraduate experience. I actually transferred not once but twice, which is not a very typical thing to do. I actually quit school for a year. I took a year off because I really was uncertain about my academic path. When I went back to school, I had some experiences in between that really helped me sharpen my focus and become very interested in disabilities, and particularly communication in kids with disabilities. But when I went back to school, I had the great good fortune of folks that reached out to me and encouraged me and said, you should aim higher, have strong aspirations for yourself, think about a career in research. And that mentoring, that sort of support and nudge and encouragement really opened doors for me that changed my life. So I think for everybody out there who's had a little bit of an unconventional path, there are many ways that work, and there are many ways that can work. But for all of us, I think, to think about our role in supporting and helping others as they determine their paths. Certainly, I, along the way, discovered a great interest in my own capacity to help others in education and in research, and to find the paths that are best for them. And I truly, truly enjoy other people. I find them very interesting. That there is no better job than higher education for an opportunity to really invest in the future of others. So it's a good match.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you. President Tuminez with Utah Valley University, bring us home on this question. Your path to this role, you're very new in the role. I have to tell you, I was tempted to have you do the traditional resume approach because you have a BS in International Relations from BYU, an MS in Soviet Studies from Harvard, and a PhD in, is it political science at MIT? So that was pretty interesting. But we're doing the opposite and just in a very personal way.
But my undergraduate, actually my first major was Russian literature.
Okay.
So Russian language and literature. International relations was the second major. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here, and thank you for this amazing stage. I was thinking today that nobody in this audience will be bored today because, you know, most panels are boring. They have a backdrop and people in suits. But today you're looking at this amazing stage, and I hope it inspires all of us to go do dishes after the session. So my path to the presidency is something that I would call the zigzag path to university presidency. I was born in a village in the Philippines in the middle of nowhere, and I was raised in the slums in the city of Iloilo. My father had 7 children. My mother left when I was 5. And basically, I was illiterate at the age of 5. But some nuns, thank you, President Cockett, for talking about nuns. Nuns from the Daughters of Charity basically found my family and decided to invite us to attend their school for free. So I guess the first thing that I would say that led me to a university presidency is education. And that education was very special because, you know, it's a very strong Catholic education. It was all about heaven and hell. We barely mentioned purgatory. And if I wasn't good, I would definitely go to hell, and there's a devil there with a pitchfork. And that was a very powerful beginning, and, you know, and Mother Superior, all the authorities in my life were women. I prayed to the Virgin Mary. So the other thing was, yeah, authority, it's women. So the education changed my entire life's trajectory. And I could never actually over-describe the difference that made. And I think the second thing that kind of prepared me to, or put me on this pathway of presidency is grit. I think that grit and problem solving are probably 2 skills that are required for this job. And in the hard knock school of life, you know, in one interview that I did for Asia while I was still living in Asia, I've lived in Asia the last 13 years before coming to Utah. I told this incident of, you know, having the worst shoes in the school is so humiliating. My shoes were the ugliest, the worst brand, and you got a hole in them in the soles of my shoes, and it was so annoying because it rained so much in the Philippines. And then one day I was playing with a lollipop wrapper, and it felt waxy. So I thought, oh, this must be waterproof. Why don't I just stuff the hole with lollipop wrappers? And so you learn to problem solve in that context because you can't throw money at the problem. And I think that's a really important thing in my preparation to be a university president. And then the third thing that I would mention in this pathway is people. Certainly nobody gets here because we're so brilliant or so wonderful or so hardworking, although all of that may be true. I think the women here are all brilliant and wonderful and hardworking, but every step along the way somebody helped me. I have mentors who have been my mentors since, you know, the nun who found me, Sister Elvira, she is still my mentor. And I met her when she was probably a 25-year-old nun. She's in her 60s now. My mentor at Brigham Young University, my Russian professor. To this day, he's probably someone I would listen to. So I would summarize it in that way, you know, education changing my life's trajectory, being gritty, and having people who've helped me get to this chair today, which is, by the way, green. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, President. So after hearing that, aren't you all glad you came today? It's really wonderful to be here. Inspiring. So for those of you that don't know, we are sitting on the stage of Wait Until Dark. So you might have to be a little older to know what that is. Some of you may not know. That's a Hitchcock film. It's actually a really frightening film. From my childhood, I do remember the scene with the refrigerator. Are people remembering that? It's a blind woman that knocks out all the lights in her home so this person can't find her, and he goes to the refrigerator and opens the door so the light shows and he can find her. Something like that. Am I getting it about right? That was pretty young. So anyway, I'm just juxtaposing that with the inspirational set right here. Yeah, problem solving. But the Hitchcock film takes place in the late 1960s, but we're sitting here in the 2010s and the 2020s. And it gives me the chance to ask you to talk about your vision for your institution. And we'll do it, you know, in a pretty short way, just a short way, but, you know, nuns have been brought up, Mother Superior's been brought up, even a devil with a pitchfork. So I was thinking that there's a biblical saying that without vision, the people perish. So let's start, President Watkins, with you. And can you share your vision for the University of Utah?
So one of the things that we're most proud of at the University of Utah is the value that we offer in education, in research, and in healthcare. And value is not cost. Value is quality and cost. It's what you get for what you pay. So the vision that we are pushing, Utah owns value in healthcare and in higher education. So remarkably affordable and high quality. The opportunity for the U to be the highest value university in our nation is before us. That's the vision we want to pursue. How are we going to do that? I think we're going to do that as we think about being the wonderful research flagship university of Utah, and also being the university for Utah. The university that has not lost sight of the needs of its citizens while pursuing a national agenda. And a university that offers an exceptional experience to our students, to our staff, to our faculty. And being a university that thinks and acts as one, where our healthcare and our education are integrated, and we're using the resources we have as efficiently as we can. But I think the big overarching message is advance value. That's what our citizens want and need. That's what our country needs, a model of value in higher education.
That's great. Let's just pass it along. President Dobkin with Westminster. Let's go to you next.
Thank you. Sitting here on a retro stage, traditionally feminine, with women leaders who have bright lights on us and can't see necessarily what's before us, in some way is a metaphor of a liberal arts education that connects the past, that sets up patterns for the present, and allows us to peer into the darkness and figure out how we will approach it. We are in a time now where we have jobs that are yet to be created. We have problems we can't yet imagine. And we need to also be, and of course technologies yet to be invented. So you put those things together, and we really need to create the kind of workforce that is adaptive and flexible and can step into leadership roles. One of the things that's beautiful about all of our institutions represented here is they provide a similar goal with very different kinds of learning experiences and environments. So at Westminster, the emphasis is on the connection of human relationships and community, and the way that you can bring disciplines together. You can have a chemist who's also singing in our choir. You can have the cross-disciplinary expertise and skills that also really bring in the presence of humanity and the connection of relationship in a way that, yes, actually does have very high value in the state of Utah and is one of the most compelling private institution experiences I think you can have in the Intermountain West. So I'm thrilled to be at Westminster College and think that it really provides for all of us the proposition of adaptive, flexible leadership in a world that we have yet to imagine.
President Dobkin, how long have you been president of Westminster? I know it's recent, but how long have you been in the role?
Since July 1st.
Let's give her a big hand for coming to Utah. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to go next. President Tuminez.
Okay, cut me some slack on vision because I've only been president for 2 weeks and 4 days. So this is a soft vision, but it's certainly something that I'm thinking a lot about as I am in the first 100 days of what I call listening, learning, and observing. And those are really, I think, very serious words: to listen, to learn, and observe. I lived in Utah for 3.5 years in the 80s, and I haven't lived here since. I returned on August 2nd. So I think about UVU as a very unique university in the state of Utah. Our students also are largely non-traditional. But I'm thinking in terms of, adjectives, nouns, and verbs. And the first thing that I think is important for this vision that is in the process of formation is what I call exceptional care. So there's an adjective and a noun, and the verb would be include. So inclusion is a really gigantic theme for UVU. Our students are, it's open admission. 77% of our students are working students. 40% of them come from below median income families. 38% are first generation. We have the tech vocational as well as 4-year and graduate, so we have this integrated mission that is really linking many different things all at once. I think it's courageous, I think it's great, I think it's innovative, I think it is something I could show to the world. So exceptional care, and we include, that's the first thing. And the second thing that I'm thinking about is exceptional accountability. And the verb that I would have there is engage. So we engage learning, engage in everything you do, whether you're a student, staff, faculty, or administrator. Exceptional accountabilities. We all own the university. My shoulders are small. I can't carry this, so we all own it. And then the third thing is exceptional results. And the verb there is achieve, that I'm thinking about, that we should all be achieving. And in this day and age, I feel that education should be absolutely non-prejudicial, that we should be breaking the walls that have separate fields of knowledge. We should be breaking the walls that say, if you're doing that, you can't do this. My own career, I think, has been a little bit like this, and I've characterized it as a little bit ADHD, I was a biotech venture capitalist on Wall Street. I was a philanthropist at Carnegie Corporation. I was an administrator at the National University of Singapore. I was a corporate and legal affairs head in Microsoft for 15 countries. And what I've learned from all of that, and I'm so happy to bring to you, is this idea that, look, knowledge flows, and come as you are, and we work together, we are accountable, and we will achieve great results. And so ask me again maybe in 6 months about that vision.
We will do it. President Huftalin with Salt Lake Community College.
Yeah, is this on? Yeah. So I just echo the first three in many ways, but I'll focus on two words. In our vision statement, we spent, when I became president, it was fortunate, we were just at the end of a strategic planning cycle. So when I walked in, we had an opportunity to rethink our vision, restate our mission, and really identify values. How do we want to do our work together? You can all be striving together for a great common goal, but if you're doing it in cutthroat or competitive or just, not collaborative ways, I don't think you get to where you really want to be. So we had a really great time as a college creating those visions and mission and values. You're going to have fun over the next year as you do that. But I think the two words that popped out in our vision that are very, very indicative of Salt Lake Community College are transformative and inclusive. So my idea, my vision is that whether you're a student, whether you're a staff member, whether you're a faculty member, however you engage with Salt Lake Community College, the experience transforms you. You walk in a certain way, thinking a certain kind of way about yourself, your abilities, your passions, your interests, and the experience you have there transforms that in some way. You gain confidence, you bloom, you find a passion you had no idea you loved. You transform as a result of that experience, and I am buoyed every day by the stories of transformation that our students have that open doors for them that could never have been opened, much like Astrid mentioned in her youth. But I want our employees to have that experience too. I want them to be professionally developing, transforming their thinking, pushing the envelope. So it's not just transformative for students. And then secondly, inclusive. I think as a comprehensive community college, similar to UVU, we have a little bit, we're in Salt Lake County, a bit more diverse. So 56% of our students are first generation. Well, more than 70% work while they're in college. Many of them are eligible for Pell, and really one textbook is going to help make them go out the door because they can't afford it. So we have bright, capable, sometimes very financially stable students, and we have bright, capable students who are not financially stable. And so how do you include them? How do you create policies that breaks down financial barriers, gender barriers, racial barriers? How do you examine policies and practices and climates that do not feel inclusive? And how do you just recognize that they're there, not blame anyone, not punish anyone, but just work to change those? Work to kind of, some of you have heard me talk about being a tempered radical. How do you kindly challenge biased thinking and limited thinking? So those are the two hopeful visions that I have for our college.
Love it. President Cockett with Utah State University, bring us home on this question.
So Utah State University is Utah's land-grant institution, which means we have three core themes: education, discovery, and engagement. And our faculty have assignments across two, sometimes all three of those core themes. So I think our students have a richness in their educational pathway by having faculty who teach, do research, and do outreach. Another function of a land grant is to provide access to research engagement and education across the state. So we have Utah State University has 8 regional campuses, which means there's building, faculty, and staff. 3 of those are residential, and then we have an additional 23 educational sites that people can get programs through broadcast and online. We're almost eclectic with all the things that we do. We have ranged from applied technology certificates up to doctorates and PhDs. And I think that the richness of education that we provide people has really made it into something where people are proud to say they're Aggies and to be part of this learning community. And so that's Utah State.
Love it. All right, I have a whole bunch of questions here, and I decided I just want to go dive into a topic. The topic is female leadership. So last night I'm driving home from work. I call Abby Osborne with the Salt Lake Chamber, and I say, remind me about the setup and how this is working. And I said, tell me about the audience. You know, is it 50-50 men, women? You know, what is it? And Abby said, I think it'll be about 50-50. So then I came and I kind of looked around. I'm like, this isn't 50-50. and I just think there will be a hunger in the audience, both for the men and the women, to talk about female leadership for a minute. And so I'm going to pose some questions, and we're not going to go, you know, A, B, C, D, E, E. Just if you want to respond to it, let's do it. But the first one, I'm going to go to the men in the audience, and I want to ask you, what advice would you give men in the room who want to help celebrate and elevate the stature of female leadership? What would you tell them?
So I'm going to jump right in. I have a lot to tell the men in the audience. Just teasing. I'm just teasing. Okay, so first I would say, and men did this for me, one of my best mentors in my entire life is a wonderful man that I met when I was 24 years old. He's since passed away. I think about him every day, because he listened to me and he gave my ideas credit early on. He, in a staff meeting, rather than say the idea, hey, Deneece thought we should do la la la, he would say, Deneece, tell us about your idea. He would just perfectly kind of stage me in the room and let people listen to my idea, let me practice presenting an idea, and then kind of encourage the development of ideas.
Wow.
So
I just have to add, that is powerful.
that is powerful.
You know, that somebody saw your talent and gave it voice.
Yeah. And it's easy to just say the idea. You've heard it as a man, but don't do that. Ask the woman to explain it and stage her. And other men that have been really phenomenal to me have pulled me aside and said, you need to do this opportunity. We all talked about it. You can do this. And when powerful men with positional authority tell you that you can do something in our society, at least for me, it sticks. And it has credibility that I wish all advice had. But I think it has more authority, unfortunately, sometimes in situations.
Wonderful. Who else would like to comment there? I noticed when when President Huftalin said, you know, listen to her, stage her, people were nodding, like that meant something. Who else wants to comment on that? Advice to men in the audience who want to elevate the stature of female leadership.
So advice to the men, well, maybe, you know, in my own journey, I think the one man who's been really important to my own leadership journey has been my husband. And I look at that and I ask myself, what is it about him? And the first thing was, you know, when we were dating and got engaged, he said to me, looked me in the eyes and said, Astrid, you're responsible for your own happiness. And he was not going to be responsible for my happiness. And I thought, am I not getting a bad deal here? You know, I thought that when I married you, you're going to do everything for me and make me happy. But that was such a powerful message, really, over 30 years of marriage, that I'm responsible for my own happiness. So I think that's important, that men give the women in their lives ownership over their happiness. Wow. And the second thing maybe worth mentioning is, you know, I was giving a talk in Bangkok to women executives at Microsoft. And I had this, you know, kind of life lessons for women's leadership, and I had all these slides. And one of my slides was about Albert Einstein, and he had that relationship with his first wife Mileva, and I think Einstein was a jerk. So I said on the slide, don't marry a jerk. That was one of my advice. And then one of the Thai women raised her hand and said, what is a jerk? And I hadn't thought about that. And I thought, a jerk is, and then I thought on the spot, well, a jerk is someone who thinks that only their dreams matter and not yours. And that holds true for men and women. I think that life is lived once, and that the opportunity to fulfill ourselves as people should be for men and for women. And some men want to nurture, and some women want to go to work, and whatever it is. So I think that's really important. And then the third thing is, it does make a difference. There have been so many times I've been in rooms and meetings, and I've had to tell my male colleagues or male participants in a meeting, like, don't say that, don't make that joke. Just a little bit of sensitivity, because I think, the experience of work is gendered, whether we like it or not. I have been told many things, like I've been told to be quiet. And my first big job was in Moscow, in Russia, where if you were quiet as a woman, that's the end of it. That's the end of it. And for women, learning even physicality, how we walk into a room and all of that, it matters a lot. So there's a certain empathy maybe that we need, in addition to, hey, let her explain it or say it. And I think we are at that point in time where we need all our human capital, and it's really not a win-lose, it's a win-win. I think families are happier, societies are healthier when we have all our human talent evolve and develop and make a contribution.
That's great. I would love to follow that up, because so much of what you've both said is so important. Listening and everything, I'm sorry, I'm just struck by highlighting all the capabilities that you've just heard about learning how to bring yourself into a room, about learning about the physicality, about wondering whether you need to temper or not. All of these skills that women end up having to cultivate in order to navigate existence actually makes them have incredible potential that's often unrealized. So for the men, I will just offer two things. One is to be able to listen, and the second is let them be. And the listening part we've already talked about. The listening is about listening to learn, to understand, and to empathize. Those are very difficult things to do in a world where you are always thinking about what your response needs to be to what you're hearing, instead of listening to where you might connect. So the listening for empathy, to try and understand from the other point of view, listening to understand, what am I missing? What did I not get? And listening to learn, how can I actually rethink my own sensibilities? Those are listening skills that are undervalued and that we really need to cultivate, that we can all use. But it's advice, for men, particularly perhaps when they're dealing with unfamiliar situations, for all of us. And the let it be part is really letting women, letting everyone, it goes back to this inclusion and engagement, find their path and cultivate it and be who they need to be, instead of trying to figure that out for them. Kind of goes to what Deneece was saying about not just saying Deneece had a great idea, but positioning her to express that idea, positioning others, giving them the education, giving them the opportunity to let them be who they need to be. And if we all could do just those two things, I think we would unleash a lot of human potential.
Interesting. Okay, I've got another issue I wanted to talk to you about on female leadership, and I want to describe sort of a philosophy of female leadership that I have, and then just have you comment on it. And as I ask this question, I just have to tell you that just sitting here on the stage with the five of you feels different to me, because you're women, than if I were sitting here with five male college presidents. So there's something that we got to just kind of dissect there a little bit.
Oh, we have better jewelry.
Well, that's where I'm going just a little bit, because I've always thought that the issue isn't that you want women to have all this equality because we're the same as men. I want the equality because we're different than men. And so I fundamentally believe that women are different, and that's why it's so important that we have women in leadership positions. So does anyone want to comment on that one? Do you agree with me? It looks like President Watkins is grabbing the mic. And then...
Well, I would say, I think you have the best teams when you have people who think differently. The weakest teams are teams where people are all all bring the same things to the table, or don't even feel comfortable expressing differences of view.
Well, so President Watkins, just on that, so the weakest teams are when they're all the same.
Yes.
So we have a problem in this society.
Yes. I mean, I
Right?
think
just think about the settings that you'll be in and how much
Right. I
groupthink
think
there is.
You want to think about a team of rivals. As we think about creating our leadership teams around us and on our campus, you will be the strongest and best team you can be when you have people who've had different experiences, who bring different talents, who will push you a little bit and offer some different perspectives, as opposed to the tempting thing to do, of course, is surround yourself with people who are just like you, who will smile and nod, and your life will be very easy, but your organization will be very weak for that. So I think that is a challenge to all of us as leaders, whatever role we're in, men, women, people of color. We want to surround ourselves with people who have had different experiences than we have, who will challenge us, who will think differently, who will better represent the society we serve.
Mm-hmm. President Watkins, can you put any words to what it is that makes female leadership different? Like, what do we add to that team?
I'm not sure that I can, because I think that among us, we are all very different
A lot of
from each
diversity
other
among-
as well.
Yeah.
So I think it would be we could go into the stereotypical answer to that, but I
Yeah.
think I
Collaborative,
right,
and,
right.
Okay.
But I think I would prefer to say each of us are individuals that bring the experiences and background and talents that we have, and that diverse leadership team. I think it will be just as problematic if we get to the place where 10 presidents in the state of Utah are all white women. It in fact is this mix that will create strength.
Love it. President Cockett, looks like you had something.
Right. So when I was named president of Utah State University, I was the first woman to hold that position. So I found myself being invited to talk about women in leadership fairly often. The first talk I gave didn't actually go very well. I had thought I would have plenty to say, and I'm still a researcher at heart, so I always use a PowerPoint. And working on that talk, I just came up with 4 slides of things that I had learned about leadership and tips. But this talk was going to be for 60 minutes. So I actually filled the rest of the time with a talk I had done on world food security. And I can tell you that the people were pretty puzzled there about how I made that leap. So the next time I
Maybe that's a mark of female leadership. It's just honesty.
So the next time that I was asked to do a talk on women leadership, I actually did start to read up on it. And one of the things that struck me was that there are different styles of leadership. Not that men only do one style and women only do another style, but I could definitely see myself in one of these different leadership approaches. So you have authoritative leadership, which is often found in military, which is you do not question anything that came from above you. The second one that's often described is translational. This is where a leader doesn't really pay too much attention to the other people within their structure, as long as they're staying in the lane that this leader has formed for them. And I found it interesting that they draw these people forward in the lane by rewarding with resources, titles, and funding. Another type of leadership is called transformation. And I would say that I am more of a transformational leader. They tend to be a flatter organization. This type of person draws out others to speak, encourages a full discussion, and then with the goal of reaching a decision, not necessarily that's in full consensus, but has allowed people to get engaged with that. And so it does come out that women leaders tend to be more commonly this transformational type than the other two. And so that helped me a lot understand how I approach things, and the type of people that I like on my leadership team.
Thank you.
Natalie, can I
Please.
comment?
Yeah.
I just want to comment because some of us on this stage have talked about this. So I've joked with Ruth and Noelle that it felt like as soon as Astrid and Beth were chosen, it felt like suddenly we had just we were a new band and we just dropped a #1 album. And they all wanted the band. We were on tour suddenly. Oh, the 5 women. Here, let's bring the 5 women.
The Mighty Five.
The Mighty Five. And hey, amen. I love it. But it's also a bit reductive. So there's this tension between being a role model and changing the dynamics of the gender balance. Amen to that. But there's also a ton of diversity in the female leadership. So I just want people to be aware of that tension. You can flip it to an almost as stereotypical conversation because we have women leaders. We never had a panel of the men leaders. They just were the panel.
Yeah.
So I just think we have to be... So I just want people to be aware of that tension. I love being a role model for women, and I'll say girl power all you want. But I also want folks to understand the nuances of our different leadership styles.
Really great points. Would any of you be comfortable commenting on some of the barriers that you had to break through to get into the position you're in? And I want to really direct this to the young women in the audience that feel these headwinds. And, all of us have a story or 2 or 3. And I don't know that you want to share your story or whatever it is, but what could we share with the young women in the audience that feel these headwinds and know that it's not, that they're not privileged in this sense, that they have things that are going against them that make it hard?
I think
President
that
Watkins.
this is actually kind of humorous story, but it is superficial. But it is a sense of we all come with a set of biases that are born of our experiences in the past. So the first year that I was here in the state of Utah, which would have been 2013 in the summer and fall, we would have many opportunities where we'd be meeting new people. And time after time after time, and I would love to give you a few specific examples, but it could be embarrassing since I can't see exactly who's here. I don't want to call anybody out. But we would be, maybe it's a football game, maybe it's the Natural History Museum, legislative night, and my husband would be with me. His name's Bob Young. And we would be standing there together, and some kind person would say, "Oh, have you met our new provost?" And to a person, they would turn to my husband and say, "Bob, it's so great to have you here." And I think, and anybody who's met my husband, there are some people here who have, they're gonna laugh now. Within about 3 minutes, it's not Bob who's the provost at a university. A very non-academic kind of guy. But I thought it's such an interesting thing because, of course, this is the experience that most people have had. And so you realize that as you get to know a new place and a new community, that the first thing you have to do is, I guess, politely but confidently let people know who you are and have people become comfortable with you, your talent, your role, and know that generally their first assumption is going to be it's not you, that's the person who's in that leadership role. And that was kind of striking to me. That was it was a sort of a first year experience.
Any other barrier stories or advice you want to share? Let's go.
So this may be both barrier as well as that previous question about female leadership in particular. So we do want to avoid being essentialist about, what is essentially male or essentially female. But I want to quote the writer Anne Lamott, who said, all truth is paradox. And, in Asian philosophy, the truth is always somewhere there in the middle. So both that militaristic, hierarchical, and then the nurturing type. I think what's interesting today is there is truth to that, at least in my experience of women being more collaborative. and or listening more. And I like that very much, because I think in a world where power is distributed, where information is distributed, where walls have come down in so many ways, I think that type of leadership actually has more longevity to it, has more problem solving to it, and I think that's a sweet spot for women who are now prepared to take on positions of leadership. And then on the barriers, I think I would say to young women, get comfortable in your skin early in life. I think that's a journey. Most people don't get comfortable in their skin for a very long time. It's like, you hit 50 and like, oh yeah, this is my skin, I'm comfortable now. But if you could do that in your 20s, so much the better. The other thing is, I think, I was telling Beth, I think earlier, that it wasn't until I had my first baby, and I was so determined to prove that I was a man at that stage in life. I was a man. I could do everything that, and it's just not right. But I didn't know my own strength until I found myself in my New York City kitchen, rocking my baby with one foot, having a phone call like this with my office, and then I was washing dishes, and I had that epiphany: wow, women can do this. And really, that was a powerful moment for me, because I realized that everything that I could do, was amazing. So at a very granular level, I got acquainted with my strength. And so I would say to the young women, you are strong. You don't even know how strong you are. So live with that thought and run with it.
Very nice. Yeah, we've got them all over here on the microphones. Very nice. I just like to add a little bit. I so appreciate the distinctiveness that we are each carving out, and that understanding that we are all different, even though we're all women. There may be some common experiences. There are very few differences, really, between men and women, but the difference makes is what we're talking about. So aside from childbearing, there really isn't much that fundamentally is different, but the way that we have to move through the world by virtue of that physical identification that people have for us is what helps shape who we are. As just one little example that might be somewhat humorous, it's a story that goes quite a ways back, so I think it's safe to share it. My husband and I were attending a black tie event, and as you all know, when you have name tags of these things, they tend to be adhesive. Right? Now, there are all kinds of things in the world that are constructed for a particular body type or a particular skin tone or those kinds of things. But when you are wearing a strappy gown, an adhesive tag is a little problematic. We walked up to the table, and the person who was my dean at the time, I was a young faculty member, saw me pick up the tag and look at it, and he said, I don't know where you're going to put that with all that cleavage. This is just no big deal in a way. He actually got very embarrassed about it afterwards when I called it his attention. But besides that, the point is that we have these experiences that teach us how to navigate and that we carry with us. So one of the things that I like to say to young women and to anybody who is told you need to get over it is that you don't need to get over it. You need to take it with you and learn from it and know that it's part of what makes you who you are, and it's part of what gives you the strength to understand other people. We all have barriers we have to overcome. It helps you understand and learn the skills to navigate that and make you a stronger, more multifaceted person. So we need to take with, not overcome.
Yeah, love your point. Thank you. So we only have 10 minutes left, and there are actually several questions submitted by the audience. So I'm going to do these really rapid fire, and maybe we can do just really quick responses for those of you that want to comment. One was on female completion. Studies show that just under 30% of Utah women fall into the statistic of some college, no degree. What can you do to improve this statistic? So female completion rates. Who wants to jump on that one quickly?
So we've looked at some cohorts of students at Utah State University over the last 10 years. And women are more than the majority of graduates at 4 years within a cohort. But what happens is the male students continue to complete even out till 10 years after they've been on campus, whereas women plateau, and very few of the women finish their degree after that 4 or 5 years of starting. So at Utah State, we're trying to provide more opportunities for those women through broadcasts, online, at our educational sites across the state. Because I think for many women, they came to one of our residential campuses, left that campus without securing that degree, and we want to make sure that they still have the opportunity to come back and finish that. President Watkins.
Yeah, I think of all the things that we mentioned today, I want to put an exclamation point on this question. Access to college, where we focused for so long, is a hollow promise without college completion. It is vital. So, very good. I think as we at the U look at women, our women who come to us have a higher graduation rate than men at 6 years. At the same time, the statistic is true. There are many, many women who have started college but not completed. So what are the ways that we help people earn their credential? When I talk to students, the message I hear loud and clear is more childcare, more support for mothers as they complete their degree. So we know we need to do that. I think I would also like to give a little shout out for our continuing education units and the parts of our university that have worked on returning to college and helping to make it easier for students to return. Perhaps a little infomercial for an effort that President Huftalin and I are working on together to create a Salt Lake Community College, University of Utah building together in Harriman, where there's a large number of people who started but didn't finish college. A first ever project of a partnership to say, let's make it easy for people in their neighborhood to come back and finish their degree. All those are vital efforts, I think.
Wonderful.
So that's a great question and certainly top of mind for us at UVU. I think my colleague Susan Madsen is here in the audience somewhere. Maybe she could elaborate on this later. But we have our Women's Success Center at UVU, which thanks to my predecessor, it's there to focus particularly on women and their academic success. And what we're finding, I agree, first, not just daycare, that's also an issue that I'll go into in a second, but financial assistance matters a lot. So our women who get scholarships, there's a 17% higher graduation rate. And then in terms of daycare, thanks to a generous donor, we have the We Care Center on campus. But I just found out recently that we actually have capacity for 140 children. We're only serving 60 at the moment. And that has to do with the way funding, what kind of funding is allowed. So we have to problem solve in order to keep that daycare center open, not only for more children, but for longer hours, because classes go into the night, and for some others, it is in the night when they can take these courses. And I think it's also really important to model, our professors, myself and others, to continue to encourage the young women at UVU. And we have academic programs like Women Lead. It's a very rigorous academic program that our women students can take. We have Women at UVU, which is a peer group, because the support from peers is very, very critical. And when I had my freshman convocation in August, I made a plea to the parents there, because at the end of the day, this journey of an education will have its walls, and you will fall and you will be depressed, discouraged. And in that journey, I said to the parents, you've got to own this and work with us, work with the university. So it's something that we're going to track, because the more women succeed, I think, again, the better for our society. And then your next challenge is that leaking pipeline when they enter the workforce, but that's another question.
Very good. Please.
At a place like Westminster, it's obviously going to look a little different, partly by virtue of our size and also by virtue of our mission. But over the last 10 years, the graduation rate of women has increased by 10%, which is quite a bit. And they are higher achieving than the men when you compare women to men. So we've had incredible success. I think it's due to a few things. We do provide financial assistance. 98% of our students receive financial aid. That's important for all students. It's particularly important for women. Westminster also has a history of focusing on degree completion that's based on prior learning assessment and competency, and that means giving credit for what people have done in the working world in addition to their academic experiences, and then helping them cross the line to degree completion. And finally, for those traditional students, I think it's really important to recognize that the kinds of networks that we've been talking about, the idea of balancing competitiveness and hierarchies with community-based learning and collaboration, are really where Westminster has put its identity and its efforts. So for some women, that is the best combination of learning. It's not for all women, it's not for all students. But for the ones who choose Westminster, I think it's what's helping them complete to a rate higher than ever before.
Very good. So I've been given the signal that there's only one more question, and I have to apologize to all the college presidents because they were given a script and we haven't followed it in any way, shape, or form. But we'll have other times to talk. So let's do this. I'd love to give each of you the opportunity, so all 5 of you, to share a thought for this audience, for this state, about how we can build a more prosperous community. What is it that's in your heart and minds that in your stewardship and as a group of interested citizens, what is your thought about how we can build a more prosperous community? And we'll finish there. We can go in an order, or you can just go as you grab the mic.
I will start.
Let's do it.
Might as well get going. A prosperous economy is going to require that we build a workforce that's flexible and adaptive, and also that we have partnerships between business and education. I think each of us are doing that in very important ways. For Westminster, one of the things that's close to my heart is having some kind of reciprocities. That is, in addition to internships, we need to also learn about what the workforce needs are and incorporate them into our curriculum. As we do that, we will create students who are better prepared to manage and lead in an environment that continually changes.
Prosperous community.
So I understand, I may have my numbers mixed up, but by 2032, 42% of the jobs that exist now will no longer exist. And that's because of technology, automation, et cetera, et cetera. So when I first heard that from Mike Lauser, the director of the USU Center for Entrepreneurship, I thought, gosh, what are all these people, where are they going to get jobs? And he indicated that what it looks like in the future will really be this drive for entrepreneurship, to take an idea, to develop it, and create not only an income for that individual person, but also through business development, jobs for others. And so I think this entrepreneurship spirit is incredibly strong in Utah. I've seen this with our students. It's emerging. 40% of our students want to have their own business. And that's the upcoming generation of people that we have in front of us. In my generation, I wouldn't leave a job unless I knew what I was going to do in the next step. This generation wants to be their own boss. So I think for Utah, we really need to stoke this spirit of entrepreneurship through students that are coming in to college or even leading into the workforce after some career technology education, giving them the tools to create that business opportunity that they can do in the community they want to live in, whether it's along the Wasatch Front or the most remote corners of Utah.
I think as I traveled around the state this summer, I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned has been mentioned previously, that is the state needs more graduates. We have to get people through their degrees in a more timely manner. So timely college completion meets the needs of our industry, but that isn't going to do it alone. I also learned from many of our big industries that if we don't produce a more diverse workforce, they will not stay with us. They're selling products around the world. They're working in very diverse environments. They want graduates that come from different backgrounds, that speak different languages, that represent different cultures. We must work on that. I think I would also say higher order skills. What I heard everywhere was, yes, we need more engineers, scientists, But we need engineers and scientists who can think, talk, work with other people. That communication ability. Oh, sorry, that didn't come out quite the diplomatic way we shoot for. But that ability to work in teams with people from different backgrounds, absolutely vital. And the other big message that I heard was there is a big difference, and I was going to ask in this group, how many people are from outside Salt Lake County or Utah County? Just you can show me. Oh, lots of you. And as I traveled around, I learned that the prosperity we're enjoying where I live is not shared everywhere, and that the need for us to engage in new and creative workforce training programs in different environments is very urgent. So those are some things I think as far as we think about industry.
President Watkins is my boss's boss's boss. So just to make that clear, but I follow your Twitter feed, and I did note that you went to the Spiral Jetty. For those of you that haven't been to the Spiral Jetty, it's in the middle of nowhere, and the President of the University of Utah paid a visit, so pretty cool.
So I just add a couple things. So Prosperous, I think I want to do a shout out for the college and what we do with workforce in terms of the diversity of ways students can get trained, right? So short-term training, long-term training, credit training, non-credit training, certificates, degrees. So there's a flexibility to accommodate business and industry and what they need. Some folks just need trained skills. They don't care whether they have a credential or not. They just need great training, or they need a particular degree. So let's work on all of this flexibility. So we have a Goldman Sachs Small Business Programs. Beth's here, who's the executive director of that, helping young entrepreneurs learn how to run their business, not just learn the content, but then learn about all those business practice in a very fast, accelerated, really strong way. So the flexibility and the diversity of learning, I think, will engage our workforce. We have a huge workforce imprint. I'm very, very proud of that. But I want to just end with Prosperous in my mind right now. I am so weary right now about people's ability to connect with one another, especially those that are different from them. And I think that's the biggest hurdle we have to figure out. How to listen, how to communicate, how to respect another opinion, how to challenge gracefully biased or cruel thinking. And I think we have to be kind. I just think we have to be kind if we're going to be smart and have the right skills, but then prosper as a community. We have to have a collective kindness rather than an individual digging in.
How many of you have seen the movie Crazy Rich Asians? All right, so those are all my neighbors. They all exist. It's all true. They're all my neighbors in Singapore, where I've lived the last 10 years. So I will begin with, the region I'm coming from, tremendous prosperity. 13 economies in Asia have grown 5 to 7% a year for 30 to 40 years. That is unprecedented. And so I know prosperity. I've seen a return to Asia and saw this amazing phenomenon. China lifted 400 million people out of poverty. And so I begin with that, and yet I come from a region where inequality is also horrendous, very intractable problem of inequality. And so I come to Utah and I see, this is much better than many countries in Asia. And we do have to think about inclusion and prosperity. So my thoughts on this are the first thing is partnerships, particularly with my university, UVU. I think we have tremendous support now from the industry, from the community. I'd love all of those to get stronger. I wasn't very happy when I learned that some companies did not recruit at UVU. You know who you are. I'll be calling you. So the partnerships. The second thing is I think digging deeper into inclusion. My former boss in Singapore told me that, he said, Astrid, when Brazil recruits soccer players, they go to the favelas, they go to the very wealthy neighborhoods, they look up and down, they go to the condominiums. And I think that's the attitude we should take, that we should be more inclusive in terms of how we imagine Utah evolving and where talent resides. And inclusion also is important in terms of our prejudices about knowledge. I will say again, my question actually originally was about STEM. And I like to tell people, look, STEM is great and we're doing many things. We just launched 3 new engineering degrees and it's all wonderful. But at the end of the day, as we enter this AI-powered world, Where's the ethics going to come from? Where's the fairness going to come from? Where's the empathy going to come from? And I am so grateful I was a Russian literature major. I mean, I think, all our automotive students should have a class in poetry. I mean, I think that would be great. So inclusion imagined in bigger and deeper and better ways. And then the third thing I would say for prosperity is early intervention. My colleague Kyle Reyes educated me by email last night about a program we do called UVU Prep, which targets 7th to 9th graders, largely underserved population, underrepresented, so women, Latinos, Native Americans, etc. And they come to UVU for 7 weeks in the summer, totally free. And this is over 500 students now. 84% of them are retained. They keep coming back. And they take courses in logic and mathematics and engineering. They have coaching on soft skills as they prepare to enter college. They listen to speakers. This is early intervention. Nuns intervened in my life when I was 5. Early intervention matters as we look to prosperity in the decades ahead. So partnerships, inclusion, and early intervention. Thank you.
Okay, so I've been taking notes here, and I just want to I'm going to call it a phrase cloud or something like that, just to remind us of what we've all just experienced. I said yes. Live up to your ability. Mentoring from a man. Unconventional path works. Zigzag works. The importance of grit. Focus on value. Stepping into the darkness. Being adaptive and flexible. I'm thinking of these are sort of like themes that we heard. Tempered radicalism. I like that. I'm going to have to talk about that more.
Deborah Meyerson. Great book.
He gave my ideas credit. It's something to just do as human beings, give other people's ideas a voice. You are responsible for your own happiness. Stoke the spirit of entrepreneurship. Might mean taking risks. Ethics and fairness and empathy. Get comfortable in your skin early in life. The weakest teams lack diversity. And it seems like we heard a lot about listening and kindness in our interactions. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our presidents a hand.